This week's episode of the Wildcard Podcast is brought to you by humanity. Humanity. While we here at the Wildcard Podcast enjoy making our audiences laugh, we also like to pull back the curtain of reality to show how superficial the things that divide us are. We like to remind our listeners that we are all one people, one race, with only cultural differences that keep us divided. We feel that only once we've learned to accept one another as human beings instead of creating and maintaining labels can we learn to create a peaceful society in which every person is treated equally, the way it should be. It was in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, in which Shylock, the Jewish merchant, implores, "If you tickle me, do I not laugh? If you prick me, do I not bleed? Until we, as a unified people, discover that which unites us, rather than that which divides, we will remain separate. The Wildcard's greatest goal is to unify all of us as common people." Damn it, Ron.
God save her.
Welcome to the Wildcard Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Eaton, and my co-pilots on this journey to wherever are my good friends Jeff Curtis.
Hello.
And the man Eiffel 65 referred to as Blue Dabba-dee Dabba-die, Dabba-dee Dabba-die, Dabba-dee Dabba-dope, Ron Blair.
I love it.
You see what I did there?
I didn't.
I connected to last week's
Yeah,
episode.
blue
Because the blue people.
See what I did there?
I like
Man.
those blue people. I find them sexy.
I bet you do.
Because they wear Little House on the Prairie dresses.
That's not true.
Yeah, of course they do. They're living in Appalachia. Appalachia. Yeah, I love them.
Right, yeah.
Very
All right,
sexy.
this is the
Sexy Smurf
Wildcard Podcast.
It is.
So, Ron, before you eat that cookie,
What?
will you tell the listeners what the Wildcard Podcast is
I can
all
hardly
about?
wait to find out what we're
The
about
Wild
today.
Card Podcast is about us educating you.
That is true.
And giving you only sincere, genuine, time-tested, researched, 100% accurate bits of information with a little bullshit thrown in.
And fart noises.
And fart noises.
gotta have a fart noise every once in a while.
know what? I have-
just to keep people on their toes.
God save us.
I have no real marketable skills,
Yeah.
but I can make a fart noise.
There you go.
Oh, by hell.
Yeah.
I can do it.
I believe him, too.
You and Aaron need to have a fart off and see who can do the best fart noises, and then we can award a winner.
I never want to
trophy.
compete with Aaron because I feel like king of the world until Aaron comes around and I'm like, oh, he's cooler and better at everything than I am. Because he's
Right.
pretty
He is
awesome
cooler
human
and better
being.
than you.
Like, he's an amazing human being. So I'm like, no, I can't compare myself to Aaron.
great to work
Shit.
with.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're here to get educated, to get learned up real good.
Oh.
And we hope that
Learned up real
in
good.
this time of
man.
giving of the topics that we go through, you're enjoying yourself, but we also hope you enjoy getting to know us a little bit. Now, today's favorite question is a little bit different.
Okay?
I want to know your favorite performance or stories about your co-hosts. So what is it you've seen the other ones do that you're like, that was incredible? So I don't mind going first.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, for the two of you together, I know it's not a popular show, but I love 1984. I know you guys didn't love it because it was so exhausting and brutal to do.
Yeah,
but it was
not
such-
gratifying.
But it was such.
But
and
it was a good show.
This is not a word anyone else would use to describe it. It was a joy to watch.
Yeah.
I loved it. I would watch that show again in a heartbeat. For Ron, I mean, lend me a tenor. That was something special.
yeah.
That was one of my first. I don't even know that I knew you super well before I had seen that.
No, I don't think you knew me at all.
Yeah,
really.
I don't. Yeah, because I first worked with you in Hairspray, which was after that, right? That was
I
the
believe
fall.
so.
That was the fall after you had done that show.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were great in Hairspray.
Thank you.
You see, you play the mom was great. We were talking Spam Mullet earlier. Brother Maynard was great. But 1984 really special. But then I would say Elephant Man, which that's one I go to a lot in terms of just a show I enjoyed. But while you were maybe a little more limited in the number of scenes you got to be in,
Yeah.
to see how differently you played Act 1 Ross versus Act 2 Ross. Because Act 1 Ross was cocky and manipulative.
Right.
And Act 2 Ross was trying to be those things, but you showed so much vulnerability in that performance.
Yeah, what did it...
In that Act 2 scene.
Whenever I came off stage, people would be like, I want to feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
I don't because you get what you deserve,
Right.
but I want so badly
Yeah,
to
no,
feel sorry
he
for
was
you.
he was so pitiable and
Yeah.
pitiful in that Act 2. I just really enjoyed that moment. And I was on stage during the entirety of that scene.
Yeah.
So I never
Yeah.
got to watch you do it. because I was like down in my desk, like writing. For some reason, Bart didn't want to leave the stage, so I was down there doing that section until you left, and then he and I had a scene together. But just some really grade A stuff.
It was fun.
Now, Jeff, performance-wise, Peter and the Starcatcher. Like for
Oh,
me,
yeah,
I
totally.
just from the moment you stepped in, there were no inhibitions.
I really have to agree with Peter and the Starcatcher.
It was
here.
just went to town,
Yeah.
and because the the person who did that role before you was great and would have done a good job with it, but would have approached it in such a different manner.
Yeah.
And we were kind of used to seeing that more rigid, and then you came in and just had a blast with it. The first time I watched you and Kit do that, the cabin scene,
Yeah.
I
it
was
was so
howling.
much fun.
I was howling.
dead. I was dead
howling.
during that scene. It was so much fun.
And I'd heard the scene before. Like I'd read it,
Yeah.
I knew what the scene was, but then when you did it, it was nothing I had seen
Yeah,
before.
just playing it with that character.
Not even how I had seen it. Like in my head, I didn't see it that way. And then you did it. It was great. And then Heroicus. Obviously, you weren't
Yeah.
in it, but to see what you could put together, to see what you can do, is really astonishing.
Wow, thank you.
I agree with Jared.
My favorite, or some of my favorite Ron roles are, my favorite would still be Fagin. Fagin was
Oh,
amazing.
man.
It was
my
before,
favorite.
Before I was down here, I didn't
So
know you
good.
on
I
that one.
love that. Well, you saw it. It was Ross.
Okay.
It was Ross in a musical.
But yeah.
But you were fantastic as Fagin. The accent, the acting, the songs, just everything. You were born to play that character.
I agree. I
Also,
love that role.
Lend me a tenor. I gotta
Oh.
say, oh my god,
So
I
funny.
wanted to play that part, but you are a much better
Thank you.
than I would have been in that part, and you were freaking amazing in
Yeah.
that too.
Really funny.
Another one of my favorite Ron roles is the first one I saw you in, which was in Jesus Christ
That was
Superstar
the
when
first
you
thing
were
That was the
Herod.
first thing
yeah.
I saw you in too.
Yeah.
When you came out and that's the only scene you were in, that one
Oh,
scene.
yeah, that 3 minutes.
That 3 minutes, and you just stole the show.
I got more. There were most nights I'd get more applause than Jesus.
Yeah.
Which
Absolutely.
was, and people would talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
I mean, Jesus had to keep singing the whole
Right.
whole show. You had that one scene, but for that scene, man, oh my God, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For something special.
For Jared, I think Elephant Man was an amazing production.
He did a tremendous job.
Yeah. My first show with Jared was when he was the Tin Man, but I don't think that showed his skills to the level that I've seen him in.
No, it scratched the surface. It's anytime you do a kind of
The
children's
Tin Man,
show
the Tin Man
kind
is
of
more
thing.
the costume than anything I had.
That's
to do.
it. It's that
I just
spectacle.
had to walk
of it.
around in that costume.
Yeah.
Right. But Elephant Man, you actually had to stretch the character that you were playing as opposed to just being kind of this funny guy.
Yeah.
Well,
You
this
had-
musical theater performer.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was fabulous. I thought you were fabulous when you stepped in Heroicus and
Yeah.
became the father
Hell
and
of a job.
Dastardly Dan. That I was amazed every night and just
Yeah.
the way you carried that off. That was fabulous.
Sir.
Well, I can't argue with Jared about you, Jeff. I think you really rose to it in Peter and gave this outstanding performance. I think you as the performer made that character shine more than what is meant to be in the written script.
I
You
love
really
that
brought
character.
it to
He's
life.
got to be somewhat likable because
Yeah.
he's the one who defeats Slank. He
Yeah.
is the
Right.
he is the contrast to how horrible the person Slank is, even though he's a pirate. But you just made him lovable.
You really did.
Mm-hmm.
Your relationship, your salacious relationship with that woman, it was so funny, so damn funny.
Yeah, you guys really worked super well together.
As far as Jared goes, Elephant Man, I'd sing your praises all day about that, but it wasn't the most fun character to watch you play. It was interesting as an artist. I'm like, oh, he's amazing in it, and you were. But in and let me say this too, in Bye Bye Birdie, which was your least challenging role,
Yeah.
because
You
it was
were good
most
at that,
like
Birdie.
you.
Yeah.
The few scenes that Jared and I shared
they were
together.
fun.
I don't even know if I'd say few
They
though,
were
because
so
we were in a
fun.
few
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
We were in quite a bit together in Bye Bye Birdie,
Yeah.
but those scenes where we got to play off of one another, my crazy kooky character versus
Yeah.
your sort of nebbishy character.
Yeah.
God
was so
damn, that
fun.
was magical.
Yeah, and you were playing such a schmuck, which is
Yeah.
so different than you usually get to play.
Right.
You're not usually the guy who's like acting like the dope. That's usually what I do.
Right,
And so
right.
for me to be a dope in some scenes, you to be a dope in others, and we come together.
And we come together,
That's pretty
and
fun.
when you're telling me that Ed Sullivan is coming, that's probably my favorite moment
I
because
pet
you
you-
like kiss
petting
me
your
on the hand or something like that, and I put my hand on you have your hand on my shoulder, I put it up there, and you like kissed it
Kiss-
one
I kiss
night,
your forehead.
which almost got me. It almost cracked me up that night. But my favorite thing I've ever seen you do is during Spamalot,
Okay.
during the Broadway number. I don't come to the lobby to watch other people perform ever, ever, ever. for the most part. It has to be an extraordinary number that gives me glee and joy every time I see it. During Spamalot, I came out to the lobby all 7 times to watch that number. It was just energetic, mesmerizing. Your dancing was awesome.
There wasn't a lot of dancing.
It was awesome, but you were so smooth.
Yeah, it was just mostly more movement. It was a number unlike anything I've ever gotten to do.
Yeah, it was. I'm not the charismatic.
Yeah.
It was great.
Thank you.
It was great. That was my favorite. And then Jeff, not just Peter, but being in 1984 with you, that was cool because you and I were the two that didn't have. We didn't get to have sex with anybody else in the show. And the other cast members did.
Although you got to hit everyone else.
We got to hit everyone else.
You got to hit everyone else.
I got to punch the shit out of almost everybody except you in that show. No, that was a joy. And 1984 took an amazing amount of trust among the performers because Jeff and we took some tumbles together.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Which was fun. But the cool thing is, if you've never seen a 300-pound man hit the floor, do a backflip kind of thing, and then get back up with his arm cocked to punch somebody, you've not lived.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened. Jeff would sling me over. I would use the momentum, and I did like a little somersault on the floor.
Yeah, that one day when my feet weren't in the right position I wasn't supporting myself well enough, and you just took us both down.
Took you down. I flung to the floor and sort of did a somersault, and then cocked my fist and rose up and still went after Aaron.
I know.
And Jeff was right there to pull me back.
Stayed in character.
And I gotta say, hitting Jeff's massive hand is like hitting a brick wall on your chest when you're trying to go after him. I beat the shit out of everybody in 1984, but I walked out of it feeling bruised and beaten after that show.
And that's how Elephant Man was for me. Like when it wasn't physical, it wasn't.
You feel exhausted.
It was the emotions. But I wanted to do it because a couple weeks ago we had Ron gushing over Peter and Star Country. So I thought it'd be something where we could kind of give to each other instead of just having Ron tell us how good we are. I thought we could share that little moment.
Yeah, that's
someday
nice.
Maybe the 3 of us can be in a show.
That'd be something.
Wouldn't that be the dream right there? Yeah.
We've been involved in the projects all together, but never on stage together.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, speaking of the project, this is the Wildcard Podcast where we educate, as Ron said earlier.
You're welcome.
We stick that truth right up in the ear sockets.
Yep.
And this week's episode is a Jeff-isode. And the angels began singing. So, Jeff, what have you got for us? Do you have a question? What do you want to get into?
Well,
oh, Ron's choking.
I want to give him CPR.
It's going to be a moment. He tried to breathe a maple cookie.
All right.
What I'm going to need you to do is lay a 2x4, lay a 2x4 down on my chest and just keep hitting it with the hammer. But don't miss the 2x4. The 2x4 protects the head of the hammer from shattering my sternum, so I need you to put the 2x4 over there and then pound on it like that.
I'll pound you.
With the hook part?
Yeah, you will.
You want me to use the hook part?
No.
I'm pounding your head? What am I pounding? Your head?
You take the hook part. You're
Stick it
pounding
in
my
your nose?
chest.
I'm sticking the hook part in your nose?
That's what you're doing. You're taking the hammer and you're pounding the 2x4 on my chest for the compressions, and then I want you to just fish hook me with the claw of the hammer.
I'm supposed to use fish hooks while I'm hammering this hammer?
No, you're using the hammer as a fish hook, and then you're going to breathe into my mouth from where you're standing, like from like several feet.
Well, how big are the nails I'm supposed to hammer into this 2x4 into your chest?
Okay, I'll just stay healthy.
I think Ron's
How about that?
Actually,
I'll stay healthy.
He is recovered.
I'm okay.
So
I'm
back
fine.
to Jeff now.
I can do a backflip and everything right now. I'm back to normal.
Now that Ron is recovered.
Yeah.
So have you guys watched very many movie trailer or commercials on TV recently?
I've seen
Not
a couple.
recently. I don't have cable.
I don't have TV.
Yeah, I have Hulu and Netflix, so it's not a Hulu and Netflix show.
I see some things on YouTube where they'll post one on there.
Right.
Well, there's a movie coming out about a woman by the name of
Winchester.
Yeah, you have seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
I knew it was coming.
Is it
I
the
haven't seen the
Winchester
trailer.
House
The
thing?
Winchester House thing.
Oh, is that what we're talking about?
We are
That's
going
one
to be
of my
talking about
favorite
that.
things in the world.
That's why
Yeah.
I thought earlier when we were talking about you saying you weren't going to say anything that you probably want to say something.
Yeah, for this
I have not seen the trailer, but I knew it was a movie that was coming
Oh
out
man,
soon.
yeah. It seems like months ago though I had seen a trailer for it. How long's the trailer been running around?
I've seen it on TV for the last week. I hadn't noticed before. I usually record everything I see and then I skip through commercials, so I don't know if it's been out longer than that. But I've noticed that the last week or so,
I can tell you...
I'd never even heard of it until we did the H.H. Holmes episode, and you talked about it
And
then.
I
That's
had
when
mentioned it
first heard
then.
of
I'll tell you this, my first exposure to it, long before Jared's
He's
birth,
exposing himself.
was... and Jeff will remember that I am exposing myself to you people. Thank you. You're welcome.
On a weekly basis.
Thank you.
On a weekly basis, I hold it in my tender hands.
Oh, here's your $5.
That's enough. Okay, thank you. Just leave it on the dresser. It's not Tuesday. But
Could be.
do you remember the show That's Incredible? With John Davidson hosting. That and Real
Barely.
People were kind of companion
Yeah, I remember
shows.
both of them.
It sounds, see, now
yeah.
the first one, That's Incredible, sounds familiar. I know I've never seen it, but I've heard that name before.
That's Incredible was more serious. They would look at more serious topics, not hard hitting like 60 Minutes. It was still, you know, like the People magazine of equivalent.
It was just like a
of-
Ripley's Believe It or Not, but it was handled more deftly.
That's the kind of thing, and it was John Davidson and Mary Crosby, I think, and they had a pan. It was like 4 of them doing stories each week on, well, like the Winchester House or you know, other some such as like that. And also human victory stories, like, you know, a great melange of ideas being expressed in Real People, or That's Incredible. Real People was more funny. more
Yeah,
comedic.
we used to watch Real People.
Yeah, that
every
was
week.
hilarious. But I remember, especially during Halloween, That's Incredible would do some kind of sinister episodes,
things.
haunted houses and stuff like that. And that's where I first learned of the Winchester House. And it's one of my favorite stories of all time. This woman who had married into the...
Hey, don't spoil it.
Okay,
Goodness.
I won't. I love this story so much. The spirits told me to build a stairway to nowhere.
Well, but did they? All right.
No. The answer is no.
She was a fucking rich lunatic, and that's what happened.
Wait.
That's not really what happened either, Ron.
Don't get ahead of ourselves.
Well, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Horse,
Well.
cart, put them where they belong.
So it seems like I'm bringing up the subject because there's a movie with Helen Mirren kind of me out about it. I've been planning to do this episode for a while. I was just waiting until I finally finished reading this book. I started several months ago reading this book called The Gunning of America by Pamela Haag, or Haag.
Hogg.
H-A-A-G.
Let's go with Haig.
We'll go with Haig.
It's mostly about how these gun manufacturers, Colt and Remington and Winchester, created a modern gun market. How they created how the gun culture we have now was created by them trying to create a market for these
Direct
guns.
result of what they did.
Right, because they were creating these guns. They had these machines creating these guns, and they're making more guns than they could sell. And the
Mass
government,
marketing.
yeah, the government wouldn't buy them, and so they had this product that nobody wanted and nobody could afford. And so the book's really about how they built their business and how they created this gun culture in order to sustain their business. But also within the book, it has a lot about Sarah Winchester and how she entered into the family and what happened with her and her portion of that fortune afterwards. Because after Oliver Winchester died, and we'll get into it later, but her husband also died, and she ended up with owning nearly 50% of the Winchester stock. And so she even though she was married into it, and she wasn't one of the creators of it. Her fortune was mostly from all these guns. These gun
An
sales.
interesting question I've been asked before. If you came upon a fortune, what would you do with it? Like, if you just had money, if money was no issue, what would you do? I'm terrible at answering that question.
I've always known what I would do. I would fund the production of the things I want to do creatively.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. And if I had more money than that, I would probably create a political action committee to support those causes when I believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That question reminds me of Sam Raimi's film, A Simple Plan, with Bill Paxton.
Or Pullman.
yeah,
or
yeah.
Pullman. One of the two. They're the same person.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Paxton. Pullman is the nicer one.
Oh.
Or the one that looks like he'd be nicer in real life. No, sorry, Paxton. He's dead.
Yeah. Well, Paxton was in it also.
I know. I can't think of the guy,
The guy who played
his little
Bad
brother.
Santa. Isn't it the guy who played Bad Santa was in it?
I think so. It's his dumber brother.
Yeah,
Bill
dumber-
Paxton's dumber brother, and then somebody
Billy
played
Bob
one of
Thornton?
their friends.
Yeah, Billy Bob Thornton.
And there was another friend involved. Those two were brothers, and then the other friend was like this white trashy guy that grew up with it. Really,
Sounds
Billy
like
Bob
Logan
Thornton's
Lucky.
friend.
Did you see Logan Lucky?
I saw the first half. I still haven't finished
Really good.
it. Very good from what I've seen. But In that film, they come upon out in the woods while hunting in the winter. They come upon this like crashed plane, like a biplane, not biplane, but with single engine.
Yeah, it's a single engine
kind of
plane, like a 1 or 2 passenger.
Right,
it's like a 2-passenger airplane.
Like a 2-passenger airplane.
Prop plane kind of thing.
And they find this duffel bag filled with cash, and there's like $8 million in it. And they decide they're going to keep it, and if somebody comes looking for it, they're going to give it back to whoever comes looking for it, that it's rightfully theirs. Right. And if they haven't come by a certain time, then Bill Paxton says he will issue it out, among the 3 of them and split it. Problem is, Bill Paxton is
trusted.
No. He's the good one. Yeah. He's the middle class guy that has a decent job and doesn't need to dig into the money. And then he's got his white trash brother and his white trash friend who, along the line, are in desperate need of money. And so then it becomes a thing between the 3 of them that they try to stay with. No, they don't kill each other. Somebody does come looking for the money though, and people do.
I remember killing in this movie.
Oh, yeah, there's killing near the end of it, for sure.
I didn't remember who killed who.
It's a very intense film. Really intense. So that question, I'm scared to answer it. I don't know.
I would keep teaching.
Yeah.
I would pay off my house, all the loans I own. I'd get like a nice computer. I'd probably buy a new house, but I don't need a new car. I don't know. It's so hard for me to fathom having a bunch of money.
So the essential question is, what would you do if you had so much money you didn't need to work?
Yeah, I think I would still work.
I would.
Most people who win the lottery keep working.
I would not be as altruistic as Jeff with it by any means. I would use the money to produce stage performances, as well as continue doing audio work, and then film work. I would just put my money into creative ventures and try to develop this empire of entertainment.
Well, what I would. This is a dream of mine that will never happen, that I've never pursued.
Well, not with that attitude.
But, when E.W. James closed down, before they were bought out by this mega church and remodeled for the mega church, which I call the Church of E.W. James, just to throw that out there.
It's the cult over there. Let's worship the giant head on the screen. That horrifies me. It's like a Kurt Vonnegut novel up there.
Anyway, I don't want this to be into putting down that whatever church that is.
I know. It's just culty to me.
What I always wanted to do with that building, if I had the money to buy that building, is I wanted to turn it into a movie studio. Or
that would be neat.
It would have been it's big enough, it's tall enough, you could have put sets in there, you could have set part of it aside as a recording studio for music, and for post sound, you could have made a green room in there. Mm-hmm. You could have done so much, and then you could have used that to create kind of this whole artistic community down in Elizabethtown of working actors and working musicians and working people who are coming to Elizabethtown because it's a cheaper place to work and live than other places. And I always thought that would have been the greatest thing that could have happened to the E.W. James building. But I don't have the money, nor do I know how to bring in the business, the Hollywood business or any other business to have. Because you'd have to have some kind of steady thing being filmed there to pay off the debt for all that money.
What you would do is you would rent the studio space out on a day-by-day basis, or hourly basis for a certain time, and that's how you'd make it.
But you'd have to bring people in to do that. And so if I had more money than I knew what to do with, I could do that, and I wouldn't have to worry about how long it would take to start bringing in business.
Right.
So I could do that. Whereas if you take out a loan, you have to have business coming in right away.
Oh, sure.
I know Mark's talked about, he would like his ideal is that he puts a dinner theater in Elizabethtown, like a Derby Dinner Playhouse style theater.
That's been a popular idea for many years. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be neat.
Well, that was quite a detour, but you just mentioned having so much money, and it's an interesting discussion.
No, it is interesting. I think this community could support an equity house.
Yeah.
I really do think, and I think we have the performers that
we definitely have the performers
to be paid to do this for a living.
It's amazing the quality of performers that are down and around this community who live here and work here in Elizabethtown.
Specifically
Elizabethtown
County.
I'm not even talking about
people
who'd come in from Louisville and other places or Marktown, just in Elizabethtown itself.
It's just for some reason very talented people either settled here or they were raised like I was in this, not raised from the time of 15, but I had great people mentoring me in the theater all the way up, and they're all from around here.
Theater is what brought me here. I mean, I was in Meade County and then started getting involved in here and moved down here.
Right.
And that's the thing. This community actually nurtures there's in each of the high schools, and they are nurturing theater in all of these places, and music as well as choir and band and all that stuff. But you actually have theater being nurtured, which you don't find a lot of places. When I was growing up, there was no theater. There was nobody teaching theater, nobody putting on plays. I mean, we had a repertory theater that operated in the summertime, but they always brought in actors from outside. There was no local people being auditioned for it, or ability for you to audition to be in the shows that they did over the summer.
That's like a paid gig. They would cast actors.
And they would cast actors
for the summer.
They'd bring them in for the summer. They'd put them up.
It's what Stephen Foster's story.
Exactly. And the Pioneer Playhouse in Kentucky, they're also equity like that.
But there was no way. I mean, I always wanted to do theater. I always wanted to do play and acting growing up. I never had that chance until I went to college. I never acted in anything.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not because I didn't want to. It's because there was absolutely no opportunity.
No, it's horrible when there's no outlet for creative people, because it's either play sports or be outcast.
Yeah.
As some,
that's how I felt when I was
as some nerd that doesn't do what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is sports, football, and baseball, and all.
Right. So talking about Sarah Winchester.
Yeah.
As we have been
the whole time. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Sarah Winchester.
Sarah Winchester's what he's talking about.
Maple cookies!
And maple cookies. Sarah Winchester and maple cookies.
Was she hot? I've never seen a picture. I bet she was hot.
I've seen pictures. She doesn't look hot to me, but in the descriptions of her, she seemed to be considered to be very beautiful.
Oh, yeah, she was. All right, Sarah.
All right. So she was born in 1840 or 1839. There's no clear specific date of birth for her, but they know it was around then.
But she's not really that attractive anymore.
Well, now she's a corpse in a coffin.
That's what I'm saying. Ugly as sin.
Okay. No.
I don't think she was quite beautiful. She had kind of a round head.
She's a very, very round head. That is true.
She looks
her
like
hair is an interesting choice.
Yeah, but
she has a pretty face.
But it's a hair.
Oh, her hair, her face is pretty. I wish she had made different.
But her hair is
decisions.
part of is normal for the ladies of 1860s, which is when that
they were
portrait
dumb
was
back then.
painted. Well, they also didn't bathe as much, so her hair wasn't as clean as people's hair today.
Man, she could have been hot.
She was hot for the times.
What a waste. Fucking cowboys.
No
they had to
Mirren.
ruin everything. No, she's no Helen
She's
Mirren.
no cowboy. She grew up in New Haven, Connecticut.
Fucking people back then.
Right, right.
Lizzie Borden and her growing up in
Colorado?
in the New England towns of Colorado. Fuck you, people.
The New England towns of Colorado. Okay.
I just can't. I can't anymore.
That's true.
Yeah. You can't. That's true. Anyway, we got to her birth.
Right? Off to a great
We
start.
made it that far.
Made it all the way through her being born.
Good job, guys. Let's take a break, and we'll be back about 10 minutes to talk about Sarah Winchester's house.
Well, her original last name, the name that she was born with, the last name that she was given when she was born was Pardee. P-A-R-D-E.
Yeah, it was.
And the Pardees,
Sarah
or
Pardegal.
Pardee, I don't know how they pronounce it specifically. There was a number of them in New Haven, Connecticut, and her father...
I heard there were a lot of parties in New Haven, Connecticut.
That's true.
Always parties. Yeah. But her father actually created a business where, and he did very well at this business that had a lot to do with finishing work for architecture. They'd come in and do the finishing work on woodwork and stuff like that.
I didn't know that. That's very interesting considering the later story.
Yeah, considering the later story that kind of opens up things. So she was very well educated. She went to college before she was married. She didn't get married until she was like 22, which was late for that age.
Spinstery,
which was late for that age. She was an avid eclectic reader. She did musical composition. She was active in arts and math and science. She spoke 4 different languages.
God damn.
She was a very educated, very smart, very knowledgeable person.
Yeah,
and even later on, after her husband died, she kept meticulous track of what was happening with the Winchester business, even though she wasn't running the business.
Is that somebody that speaks multiple languages?
And is accredited in multiple categories of things. So like they're really good at science. They know they're good at math. They're good at
okay. She's a Renaissance woman. Yeah.
So she and
pretty sure
she and Oliver Winchester.
It's
a polymorph. What's a polymorph?
Polymath is a person whose expertise spans a significant number of different subject areas.
And a polymorph is an alien, I believe.
Polymorph means many different shapes.
Well, there you go. Like werewolves.
Technically form, not shapes.
Shapeshifters, lycanthropes, whatnots.
So,
bats.
She and William Witt Winchester, who was Oliver Winchester's
William
son.
Witt Winchester.
Yeah, he was named
William
after
Witt
3W.
Winchester.
William Witt was, I believe, either he was a famous congressman or he was a Supreme Court judge.
You're
He
thinking
was,
of Walt Whitman.
Walt Whitman. Walter Whitman.
well, William
Or,
Witt.
as we'd call him.
Well, William Witt was an actual person who was somehow involved in government or was famous at that time. And
Good buddy
Oliver Winchester named his son after this person. So
Okay.
that's why he named him William Witt Winchester.
So William was not an
WWW.
industrialist?
Dot.
What?
I had always thought William was an industrialist like his old man.
Well,
It's your old man.
Miles, so's your old man. So's your
William
old
Witt
man.
or William Witt Winchester.
Covering up
Moving
telltale
on.
breath with Simpson.
Oliver Winchester did not invent the Winchester. Someone else invented it, and he
Shot them.
He shot him and took the
No,
patent.
he saw the potential of the gun that this other person created, and he bought them out.
And how
He
good
bought
was
the patent.
How good was the
Wow.
timing when he bought this as we head into the 1860s?
Well, it wasn't.
I mean, it would have been much earlier.
It wasn't the
than that.
1830s, 1840s when he bought out this patent.
Native American genocide. There's always a reason to have a gun for an American,
But
isn't there?
you're-
Always a reason.
You're jumping ahead of the story.
I'm sorry.
Oliver Winchester and his partner, I forget the guy's name, they actually had a business making women's clothing. They were clothing manufacturers, and they were doing very well. They had become rich off this business.
Yeah.
And then he saw this gun, and he bought the rights to it, bought the patents to it, invested in building the machineries, kind of stopped doing the whole clothing thing, and went all in on this gun manufacturing of this new kind of repeating rifle.
Did he use the same industrial machines? Like, could he convert those kind of machines over from making women's wear?
Well, I don't think he could convert the same machines, but
you got the space.
But he had the buildings,
income.
and he knew about manufacturing, using machines to manufacture, which
and running
and
the
running
business.
it and running the
Right.
business. And his goal was to make this rifle, and he thought that he could sell it to the U.S. government for the military.
Sure.
But the U.S. government wouldn't buy it from him because they still believed in these craftsman rifles that were one-off things that
Like Remington or
Well, Remington
Colt.
wasn't a one-off.
Or like an actual
these were other
artisan who's making
like
them.
artisans
Okay,
making
like
guns.
a gunsmith.
Yeah, as
An
opposed to the
actual
mass
gunsmith.
manufacturing.
Right.
So he had to build this business. He and Colt and Remington and these other gun manufacturers who were creating this, who were starting to make guns with these machines, they had to create a business. And their way of creating the business was to send out salesmen around the world and throughout the country. And so they would sell their guns to like Turkey, to the Turkish government and their army, or to the French government and their army, or the Italians. And so
They're arming everyone else like now, America.
yeah,
needs
they're
guns,
arming
don't you?
everyone else.
Yeah. Good thing we
and
learned our lesson.
They were like the original arms dealer.
Yeah.
And so in the United States, since they didn't have a government contract, they had, in order to sell their product, because it's easier to manufacture these things than to sell them at first, because people couldn't afford guns. They didn't really see the need to have guns unless they were, most people in the United States did not have guns, nor were they clamoring for guns. They had to create a reason for people to buy guns. And even once they created a gun market and more people were moving out west, more people needed guns for various things, there was other people who were making cheaper guns.
Yeah.
But anyway, after his son was born, William Witt was his only son. He had another daughter or two. I think he had a couple daughters. One of them, but William Witt was his only son. And so he trained him in the business.
Sure. Heir to the business right there.
So, and the name of their company was the Winchester Repeating
Arms
Company.
Yeah.
So, in 1862, William Witt Winchester married Sarah Pardee, and she became Sarah Winchester. And they lived in Oliver Winchester's mansion while they were building their own mansion. And in 1866, their only child was born, a baby who they named Annie, who lived for 40 days.
Oh.
And then it died because it wasn't able to absorb nutrition.
Why is that?
Digestive-
Was it blue? It was
Digestive
blue.
issue.
It had
It sounds like an intestinal problem.
it had a disease called marasmus,
Erasmus?
or that's what they called it, marasmus. But the baby was unable to absorb nutrition because even from milking and everything else. It wasted away.
That's horrible, and I wonder how they
as a
have fought
parent
that disease now.
Well, they've got drugs and other things that can counter it now, but back then there was nothing.
Sure.
And the baby was born on June 15th, and that summer was one of the hottest summers on record in New England and in Connecticut. And back then they didn't have air conditioning, so if it's 98 degrees outside, it's 98 degrees inside.
Yeah.
And so that didn't help. And so 40 days after the baby was born, the baby died.
So marasmus is typically a side effect of something else.
Okay, well,
marasmus is the kind of thing you would see in a lot of those like Sarah McLachlan videos about children in Africa who are suffering from malnutrition. Now they're obviously they don't have the nutrition they need there. So with this baby, I don't know why the baby would be suffering from it unless there was another problem that led to this. But marasmus means withering.
Okay.
So
well, anyway,
away.
it definitely was withering away. It couldn't absorb. It couldn't absorb nutrients.
As
That's
a parent,
what the
that
problem
would be
that
horrible.
was
to
that
watch
was
your child
horrible.
wasting away and not be able to do anything about it.
And so that was kind of a blow. Also, William Witt developed tuberculosis. Her
Speaking
husband.
of withering away,
Common
consumption.
back then, though.
Yeah.
So-
we did a tuberculosis episode.
Yes, we did.
Very common.
So her baby dies, and her husband has tuberculosis, and so he's being trained to take over this business, but he has tuberculosis.
Oh, he's weak.
And so
You can live for several years with tuberculosis.
he actually lived for a long time with
Under the right
tuberculosis.
conditions,
They would travel to places
Arizona, New Mexico.
Arizona.
Yeah.
They went to a place called White Mountains that had a retreat for people with tuberculosis, where the air was supposed to be better, where it wasn't.
It was drier.
Where it was drier, where it wasn't as wet or heavy.
It was humid that sits on the lungs
And so there are rumors. No one knows for sure if she had any other pregnancies. No other child was ever born. There's suspicion by the author of this book that she may have gotten pregnant and those pregnancies not been able to carry to.
which can happen.
So they never had a child. This was their only child that died in 1866. So Sarah at that point would have been 26 when her baby died. So they continue to live their gun heiress life.
Right.
She helps to take care of her father-in-law, Oliver Winchester, because they're still living in the mansion, as well as her husband. So she's becoming this caretaker of the men in this family.
Yeah. She's taking care of the home.
She's taking care of the home, the house.
Probably some of the business too.
Yeah.
And, well, Oliver Winchester has other partners that are also part of the business. And William Witt's sister, Jane, marries one of the guys who used to be a salesman, who then, as Oliver starts to not be able to do as much, starts to take over the actual running responsibility of the company. So in 1880, Oliver Winchester dies.
Okay.
Right.
In 1881, William Witt Winchester dies
Yeah.
from tuberculosis.
So she's 40-ish?
She's 41.
Yeah.
And does she move right away to San Francisco?
No. There's some debate about what happens then. Yeah. But before she moved, there are rumors that she started becoming involved with the spiritualists.
Right. Sure.
There's no evidence that she did, just rumors.
Yeah.
And the spiritualists, their movement was big, especially at that time, pre-Civil War, and then definitely during the Civil War.
So much death.
Well, after
so much death.
Yeah.
And the Civil War actually, the North started buying Winchester rifles during the Civil War, these repeating rifles. Mm-hmm. And so their business grew during the Civil War. So there's rumors that she started, the spiritualists would have these kind of revival meetings where like 500, 1,000 people would come, and these spiritualists would come and do readings. Merchants would come and bring their stuff to sell, food and
any event
and
like
stuff
that.
like that.
It's like a potluck.
It is. It's just like a potluck.
Exactly. And so they would, mediums would travel from town to town, and they would do seances with wealthy people and with middle class people. But what they do before they would have a seance with people is that
Get to know the family.
Well, no, there was these spiritualists or mediums who would be living in these communities who would keep a book of records about all the people who might be good marks in in any town. And so when you'd go to a new city, you'd go to this person, and you'd look at their book. It's like going on the internet and looking up everything you can about this person.
Right.
So that when you meet this person for the first time, your clairvoyance you're able to tell them things about themselves that there's no way you're supposed to know because you just came into town.
Gosh, Ron, you'd have been so good at that.
I know I would have. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I look at Jared and I see the letter C. Somebody in your life, their name starts with the letter C, maybe a cousin Chris. You have a cousin.
I have a brother named Chris.
Well, there you go. Yeah. See, it's that easy.
Wow.
And then they'd be amazed, and from then I've got them in my pocket, and they'll believe any bullshit I lay in front of them, just to connect the tissue between they and I.
It's like the second episode of the Wildcard podcast was called "The Wildcards Want to Believe."
Right.
And there's so many people who want to believe. There's more out there that they will turn things into evidence. Confirmation bias.
And I feel that way with many supernatural things that they say most people who see ghosts are the ones who are open to see ghosts. Well, you think so, dumbass. The one who wants to see something spooky is going to see something spooky. Their brain's going to create something spooky.
Well, also, there's this saying that, there's this quote in this book that the first thing that a medium would learn is that people want what they already believe to be confirmed when they're going to a seance. So if they believe that they're being cursed by this, that's what they're looking for, confirmation that they're being cursed.
I knew it. I knew it. Be right.
Exactly.
Because they want to be right.
Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. So
you don't want to not be cursed. You want to be right.
Right.
So when these mediums or these clairvoyants would do these seances, they would have this cabinet that would be in this room, this built-in cabinet. Then they'd have people open up this cabinet and there'd be nothing inside, and they'd have them bang on the walls and the ceiling, and then they close it, and then they put a table in front of the cabinet while you're sitting around and you're talking, and the person who's dead and gone by they're being channeled through the clairvoyant. Suddenly an arm that's white will reach out from the cabinet. And the table's there in front of the cabinet so that no one can get to it and grab that arm before it disappears.
Right, that's beautiful.
And so what these cabinets, they would have a trap door in the roof. And so after it's been checked out, the clairvoyant's assistant would slip inside. They would be wearing a bodysuit except for this one arm.
Yeah.
And then the arm would come out and reach out at an opportune moment, and then so that it could be viewed as this ghostly arm.
Oh, that's
and then
great.
it would then be retracted and the person would disappear.
Hey,
and so
I'll tell you this though, even knowing what was happening, I'd still get freaked out.
Yeah.
Even if I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, because you'd be in the moment and the atmosphere would be right and it would be creepy. It's like building a haunted house. You put them in the mood and then you can fuck with them from there.
But the people going to these seances want to believe anyway.
Yeah.
They're not looking to have the truth revealed to them. They believe this. In fact, there was plenty of doubters back then. Plenty of people writing in papers that this is hope.
Well, Houdini, I think, went on a crusade against these people.
Yeah, that this is all made up bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't use those words, and they would give people the evidence, and people would still not believe them because they were invested in the belief.
Welcome to being a science teacher.
Like you,
I'm sure.
Like we don't see any evidence of that anywhere around us.
Not in this country do we see facts and disavow them completely.
So global warming is definitely
right.
real.
It's so cold today. There's no global warming. There's a 60-degree day in July. It couldn't be global warming's not real.
Anyway, so legend holds that Sarah Winchester first started going to these spiritualists and mediums in the 1870s, before her husband died.
10 years before. Anyway,
Wow.
Or
but she,
anywhere
she has
within that
lost
decade.
Her daughter,
She's lost her daughter.
She lose her daughter. And it is a desperate attempt to make contact with a human being that you've lost.
And it was a popular thing to do in that part of the country at that part of the time.
I bet she had people she knew who had gone there. Like you need to check
I'm sure
this
you
out.
have to go there in the social circles.
And if you don't, it's because you don't care.
If she actually,
you don't care about lost child.
if she actually did, we don't know that she did.
Yeah.
There's legend, and there's what we know, which is we don't know that she did.
So she was in South America with Hitler at the time.
I heard about that, and I actually read a story by Gregory Peck.
There's not a single person who knew her that said she ever stated that she believed in ghosts. We don't know that she didn't, but in none of the letters that survived, and in none of the testimony of the people who actually knew her, no one can ever recall her ever saying that she believed in ghosts.
Even after she started construction on the house?
Even after she started construction on the house. Although we'll talk about that, and not a whole lot of people talked to her after she started construction on the house.
Well, I'm sure she lost her mind. But I do want to know, because I had always heard she built it for reasons of, escaping the ghosts and giving them a channel or whatever.
Right.
But where does that information come from?
Okay. Well, what happened after her husband died? There are rumors that she went to Europe for a couple of years and traveled around before she came back. There's rumors that she was meeting with this medium who many people think his name was Adam Coombs. When this author looked into it, she found a medium but other people said it was a woman from Boston. And this woman that wrote this book, The Gunning of America, found that there was a woman who was supposedly a medium from Boston whose name was Ada Coombs.
Oh, okay.
So it's close. It could have been Ada Coombs if this was the person. So the rumor, and that's all it is, is that after her husband died and before she left New Haven, she had a seance, or she met with this Ada Coombs person who she'd met with many other times.
Yeah.
And after she met with that woman, she got on a train and went to California, and she never went back to New Haven, not once in the rest of her life. Which is true.
Wow.
She never returned to New Haven. All the business was in New Haven, and she would write letters to people there, but she never once returned to New Haven, even for funeral of people that were close to her.
Was she told by the medium not to return?
That's the thing. We don't know what anything that was.
So she never told anybody.
If that even happened, we don't know. But we do know that she went and never came back.
Yeah. Well, what we know is that she left New Haven by train and never came back.
Yeah.
We don't know why. We know what the legend says. And rumor, but there's a lot of rumors that started circulating while she was building her house.
It was green children.
I bet it was green children. Because people started some shit.
People are making up stuff to stories about what's going on because they don't know.
Right. It's conjecture.
It's conjecture, and then. Well, we'll talk about where all these rumors come from later. Okay. So she moves to California, and it's actually San Jose.
San Jose, okay.
So it's San Jose, California.
I knew it was a San something.
At the time, which there wasn't very much town there, but her sister and her niece and some other family members had already moved to California too. Yeah. So she moved and was close to them, and they're driving probably in a buggy through the countryside, and they pass this property, and there's this house that's being built by this doctor, this 8-room house, and she says, "This is where I have to build my house." Mm-hmm. And so she bought the house and the property from him, which was like 161 acres.
Yeah, and it's a large house at that time anyway.
Well,
correct? Like at
the time. 8 rooms is probably a nice house for that time in that place. But so it's on a road to nowhere.
Ironically.
And so then she went about buying other large tracts of property that connected with this.
To make it even more isolated.
Yeah. She bought one piece of property for her sister and her sister's husband and family. But basically, she bought like these 4 giant, huge tracts of land, much of which today is San Jose. Or
no kidding. It's
Alta
the
Vista.
city.
It's the city, or it's the... Yeah. So it's... So she bought this land, and then she started construction on her... Or remodeling this... this house that she bought, or construction on this house.
Yeah.
Do you think when she was talking to her sister, she said, "This land is your land.
This land
is my land. You're in California. That's
to the New York Islands.
To the New York Islands." So, as she's building this house, she starts construction 1880 something. For the next 38 years, construction never stops on the house. She has carpenters who she's hired that are working in shifts,
right? Yeah.
Three shifts a day, 24 hours a day. She's paying them 3 times the wages of what other carpenters are getting.
Right.
And they never stop building.
Yeah.
So she starts building this house. There's only one room in this house that was designed by an architect. That's the ballroom. Every other room in this house is a room that she designs by drawing on a napkin or drawing on a piece of paper and then giving it to her carpenters to build.
Make it work.
And she would go through and examine what they built, and she would be very meticulous about stuff and make them redo stuff. There's one guy who spent like a whole month laying this wooden floor by hand that uses no nails, piece by piece. That was the only thing he did for like a month in this one room. Interlocking wood pieces.
I thought it'd be torture, but you'd also getting paid pretty darn good for it. So
that's the thing.
You probably don't care how long it takes.
And it's a job that's never going away because she never stops building.
No, I'm sure there were people that worked their entire lives on that house until she died.
In 1906, by the time of the 1906 earthquake, this house is 7 stories high.
God damn.
And has over 500 rooms.
Yeah. Wow. Including a seance room.
Well, we'll get to the seance room. We'll get to the seance room.
I can't wait.
So, when the earthquake happens, there are people who say that she believes that the earthquake was a message to her, that it was the evil spirit, it was the spirits coming after her specifically.
Right.
And much of her house fell down. The size of the house in 1906 before the earthquake was never reproduced afterwards. They never got back to it. By the time that she died, the house was only 4 stories high and only had 161 rooms. One room which they just found a couple years ago. Which was a secret attic room.
No shit, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, shit, really.
How happy would you be to explore that?
I would be amazed. I would love it. Because I think the Winchester House, you have so many ghost hunters going there that are like, what are the spirits? What are the spirits? I look at the Winchester House as being an excellent study in psychosis and the culture at the time, this desperate, lonely woman searching for the only people in her lives that she would see some days would be these construction workers who have nothing to do with her at all, for the most part.
Well, for many years, her niece actually lived there with her.
Did she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially in the early years of the construction that was going on. And friends would write saying that they would like to visit, and she said, "Oh, we're having problems with the plaster. When we fix the plaster brown, we've finished with that construction. You can come, but right now the house isn't ready for guests." At one point, because she's rich, and so which makes her part of the rich community in San Jose.
Sure.
Teddy Roosevelt was coming through, and before he was president, but he was still somebody, and they wanted her to host him and to have him stay with her, and she begged off. She wouldn't do it.
Wow.
She never once had any guests come live in this 161 room house, or even when it was a 500 room house.
So did anyone at all other than her niece live there?
The only people who lived there was her and her niece and the servants.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if the carpenters lived there or if she had carpenter quarters for them. She did have servants who by the end needed maps to find their way through this mansion. So she is reported to have believed that she needed to keep building the house. If she ever stopped construction, that these spirits would come.
Yeah, they would get her.
Right. But there's all these anomalies. Well, we'll get to the anomalies of the house in a minute. Let's finish off with Sarah Winchester. Then we'll talk specifically about the house.
Yeah.
So she is reported by I think the servants. Anyway, she would get up at midnight. Mm-hmm. She in her letters to people, she talks about not sleeping well and having sleeping problems. She had a bell or alarm that would go off at midnight every day. So she would get up at midnight and she would go down to this seance room, which is in the middle of her house. People call it a seance room. What she was doing inside it, nobody knows. There was one door into it with a lock and only one key, and she's the only person who had a key to that lock.
And it's like the heart of the house.
And it's the heart of the house. It's in the very center of the house. And in her later years, when she needed help getting around, a maid would help her into the room.
But wouldn't go in with her?
But then she would be locked out. But she never left through that entrance. The thing about the seance room is there are 3 secret exits to that room. One through the seance cabinet, another a trap door in the floor, and another one is a secret panel on the wall.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
She wouldn't leave through that exit, through the entrance. The only way in was through that entrance.
Yeah.
But then she would leave one of these other 3 ways.
Knew how long she was in there.
And never saw her leave.
She'd always stay about 4 hours. Whatever she would stay about 4 hours. The other thing, and this is reported by the servants, is that she never. She would sleep in different rooms. When they had the 1906 earthquake, it took them over an hour to find out where she was because she would sleep in a different bedroom each night.
I mean, I would if I had the option.
Hell yeah! In a place like that, you'd sleep in it'd be like staying at a hotel every night. It's a different room.
So after the earthquake, she moves into this barge, houseboat barge, down in the harbor for about 8 months, 6 months, 8 months,
Yeah.
and then she goes back to the house and they start building. But they don't rebuild the stuff that fell down. A lot of that stuff's just walled off. They just keep building new stuff. So the building never stopped until by the time that she, just before she died, the workmen would pretend to be building. They'd be hammering in the background because, she wasn't getting around very well.
Yeah, she didn't know any
They would
better.
just pound and stuff like that.
That's why she died. They stopped building.
That's exactly it.
They were only
didn't
taking
come after her.
They were only taking care of the lawn in front of the house, and they're letting the rest of it go because she's only looking at the stuff in the front.
Right.
So after she dies, and when her husband died, she inherited $20 million, which for money at that time is equivalent to $500 million now.
Goodness.
And so the theory that Pamela Haig puts forward is that she was trying to pay down that money, that guilt. She was trying to spend that money and get rid of it, but not have the money but for nobody to be able to say that the money, at least something good came from it, because after all these terrible things, she supposedly felt guilt about all the people who died because of these Winchester arms, and felt that the spirits. That's why her daughter died. That's why her husband died from tuberculosis, because the spirits it was payback for all these deaths.
Yeah.
And supposedly she was building this house, never stopping building, so that to keep the spirits mollified, and also as a maid so that they wouldn't be able to find her. Like there's chimneys that go nowhere. There's a staircase that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
There's secret passages. There's 13 bathrooms and only one of them works.
And
There's only 3 mirrors in this entire house.
I love that there are staircases that are built at particular angles, specific angles, and at different pitches, different widths and lengths. It's just fascinating that you would go to a normal staircase and then to some tiny little staircase that leads to a door to nowhere.
So let's talk about the house. There's more I could say about Sarah Winchester, but we really want to talk about the house.
Dead.
What did she die of?
She died of old age. She was 80-something.
A broken heart. She died of a broken heart.
But
Broken with a hammer.
And a 2x4.
So she left in her will. The number 13 was important to her. There are 13. It's built into this house. There's 13 steps in the stairs.
Yeah.
There's 13 lights in a chandelier. One that was added.
Yeah.
It came with 12, and so they added a 13th. There's the motif of 13 throughout the house. And in her will, there's 13 clauses. And so she's very specific about what she wants to happen with her fortune. She gives a lot of it to charity. A lot of it goes to her niece, who had lived with her.
Yeah.
But then she says the house is to be sold and all the stuff in it to be sold. So the niece kept what she wanted, and then the rest of it was auctioned off. And they couldn't sell the house because who's going to buy this 161 mansion of craziness or apparent craziness?
Yeah.
What can you do with it? So
there's no practical use for this house.
It was originally
It could be a museum now.
It was rented out. Well, it was sold to I think a holding company or something like that, who rented it out to these people who turned it into the Winchester Mystery House and started doing tours on it.
Right.
And they eventually bought it themselves. But the legends that you hear from the people who own it, you can't trust those, because a lot of the people who work there have been told make up stuff. It helps. It makes people
make up stories.
Make up stories.
So
there's all these made up stories, and so what's true, what's not true at this point. But the house itself, So let's talk about the house. There's over 2,000 doors in the house. What's left of the house? The house that's there now. There's over 2,000 doors. Who knows how many doors there were in 1906?
And where they led. Where would they lead?
There are rooms inside of rooms. There are windows inside the house that just look into other rooms.
Yeah.
There are skylights in the roof.
Go to another floor.
There's another floor on top of it. Yeah. Sometimes there's a skylight between both floors, and then it's just blocked off. There's a lot of these chimneys. There's 48 chimneys in the house. Yeah. A lot of them stop at the roof or stop on another floor, and people say it's because she wanted the spirits to get trapped in there. But it could also be that when they were rebuilding after the earthquake, they just added floors on there and didn't bother to continue on with these chimneys.
See, I had always heard that it was built in such a convoluted way because when she got up at midnight to go to her seance room, so that the spirits would not necessarily follow her into this room, she would take all these weird passages and routes to go there so that they would get lost trying to follow her.
Well, there are miles of hallways if you're going from one side of the house to the other that go all over the place.
Yeah.
But if you know the house, there's passages where that you can go directly without going through this maze of corridors.
Right.
But who knows if she built this maze of corridor on purpose or if she just was wanting to keep building because building made her happy. And so she kept adding on and she'd have an idea, well, I want a room like this. And so let's add it on here. Because to me, because I've seen pictures of this house. There's one door leading out of this one place that it's on the second floor. It opens up and it's a drop to the ground. There's nothing there.
Yeah, I've seen those photos.
There's no stairs
amazing.
or anything. There's another stairway that doesn't start at the floor. It kind of starts at waist level and then it goes up to the roof and just stops.
Yeah.
Now, whether it originally went up to another floor before the earthquake or not, I don't know. But as an architectural feature now, it's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It has no purpose.
The trap door from her seance room went into the kitchen.
You get hungry after a seance is the thing. You get a little peckish.
They've shown pictures of, and who knows how many kitchens she had. She had at least one. She may have had several. There's this picture from one of her kitchens that shows looking out this window up to a door of another part of the house. It doesn't go outside. It's just another door that you see through this window.
Yeah.
I believe you need a kitchen on every floor.
Every floor. A lady would have a kitchen on every floor.
So to me,
proper.
The house resembles more like a doodle. You know, when you're doodling on a piece of paper and you start drawing lines and it starts growing.
Like MC Escher painting.
Well, yeah, that's what I keep thinking. This MC Escher painting, where the stairs go to the other stairs,
different dimension,
impossibly connected.
Well, Escher lived at that same time. He was famous at that same time. So there are people who think that she built her house as an art installation of MC Escher.
I wonder if they knew one another and if there was an influence there.
Way the other.
But there's also, when I was looking at online to get other viewpoints, there's people who claim that she was a Rosicrucian and Mason, and that this is all about numerology and Masons and that all this spiritual stuff is nonsense because it's this numerological, the secret society bullshit.
And she had Rh negative blood.
Oh, alien.
Yep.
And so it's like, even the people trying to debunk the ghost stuff are crazy. Yeah. So who knows what the truth is? I think she may or may not have believed in ghosts. She was probably felt haunted in some ways.
I'm sure.
As she got,
certainly disturbed.
She had her people working for her who would buy things from all over the world. She populated this house with the finest furniture, the finest knickknacks, all these things. If she wanted something locally, she would have her chauffeur drive her into town. Then she'd send the chauffeur into the business to buy what it was, or bring it out to show her, and then he'd take it back in. The older she got, the less social she became, which is true for most old people.
Yeah.
So I don't think she was crazy necessarily. I don't know if she believed in ghosts. I don't buy the idea that she built this house to keep the ghosts away. I think it's more like a doodling project, and that she started building, and there was something about the building that brought her pleasure and joy or peace. As long as she was focused on work, she kept building. And if you have no architectural plan that you're going after, you're just adding stuff on as they leap into your head.
Well, I think you have this,
but I don't know. So
I think you have this essentially altruistic woman, a good woman with a good conscience, who marries a man she loves, who just so happens to be part of an empire that makes their money off of death.
Yeah.
Constant, complete death. Winchester's the gun that won the West.
That's one of their marketing things.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Absolutely.
Most people in the West didn't even they couldn't afford Winchesters. Yeah. They couldn't afford it.
But it won the West.
Winchester, in the 1900s, after the West had been won, started this marketing campaign of Winchester, the rifle that won the West. It's nothing but a company slogan.
So it's
a good one though.
It is. You, as a good human being, a good woman, continue to get massive amounts of money off of the death of other human beings.
And if you don't, someone else will.
Someone else
She was making $1,000 a day, which in those times would be Who knows what? It'd be millions.
What does that do
Not
to you? What does that do to you psychologically? You've lost your
Plus,
entire family.
Annie, her baby, watched away.
Exactly.
Her husband with the
so much tragedy,
tuberculosis.
so much hardship, and the money that does come in that she has to live off of is from death.
The thing is, until after World War I, when Winchester Company started having financial problems because they borrowed all this money to increase their factories to produce guns for the army for World War I.
Yeah.
Afterwards, they were flat broke because they weren't able to make enough money to pay off these debts that they had to incur to build all these rifles. Up until that point, and then they reorganized it, and she gave. They redid the stocks, and her stocks had less value. Up until that point, she couldn't spend the money as fast as she was making the money. It wasn't until that point, when her stocks were worth less and she was taking in less money, that she was finally able to have less money at the end of her life than she had at a certain point earlier.
Yeah. And it's blood money. It's all blood money. Gained from the murder of people.
But if it's blood money, why did she have a room dedicated to Winchester rifles in the middle of her house?
Well, I don't have all the answers.
Well, then what use are you, Ron?
I don't know.
This is the Wild Card Podcast. We're here to give all the answers.
We're here to educate. You're right.
But that's
You're
the
right.
thing.
I'm here to sprinkle bullshit. That's my job here.
You do it, which you do very well.
Thank you.
I would love to walk through this house. You could probably spend hours or days walking through this house.
Without a doubt.
I'm not afraid of running into ghosts. I might be afraid of getting lost, but I would love to just experience this house. I don't think you can actually understand who she was and what she was doing, and without being in that space. And so I've never been in that space. The pictures I've looked at are fabulous.
I'm all for a trip to San Jose, and I'm not going in that house by myself.
There were fabulous. There's fabulous photographs. And I kept Googling for a floor plan. I could never find a floor plan of the house.
No one's even an artist.
Yeah, they can't figure it out when they're in the inside.
So who knows? Sarah, the person she became when she was living and building that house is kind of an enigma.
Yeah.
She would write letters to people, and a lot of them had to do with business and other things that were going on. None of them she was never specific about what she was doing with the house.
Right.
Most people who've made up legends of the house at that time were never in the house, had never spoken to her, didn't know anything about it. Yeah. Her workers, many of her workers claimed that all these things that have 13 are part of them were added after the house was sold after her death, which would be a little strange if there's 13 stairs. I don't think the stairs were rebuilt. So who knows what the real truth is? I don't think the movie that's coming out is going to tell us what the real truth is.
Hell no, it'll be a sensationalized
It says based on a true story, and then it'll be based on all these legends, and it'll probably be a fun movie.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't think it's going to be factual.
Well, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on a true story too, and it was not
So the Hills
at
Have
all.
Eyes?
Yeah, The Hills Have Eyes. There's another one. No, it wasn't.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Very entertaining.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Analysis
I love
of the Winchester House.
so much.
I didn't know much about it, so that was pretty new to me.
Oh, it's a neat story about this woman.
Speaking of neat deckheads, you guys, we think you're neat.
We got some neat deckheads.
Yeah, we thank you so much for tuning in and checking out. If you have any suggestions for topics or favorites questions, or if you want to talk about shows we've done and just heap praise on us,
I love that. I can't get enough praise.
Yeah, you can you're allowed to do that, or put your name out there, and we'll tell you what we love that you were in. If
that would be great.
A part of
what we love about you.
Yeah,
your eyes. Or
Ron, can you give us a teaser
knees.
about what might be coming next? Do you have any wheels turning to that head of yours about what might be coming up down the road? Because you're up next.
It is my turn, isn't it?
It will be a Ronisode.
It will be a Ronisode. All I can really say about it is
he doesn't know yet.
Study up, study up,
study up.
Be prepared.
No,
God,
please
do
don't.
Your thing.
Please don't. Oh God.
Get knowledge while you can.
I hope not.
Start the studying process now.
2 weeks.
It might not be the next time I go. But it's coming.
Oh, gosh.
It's coming.
And I hope that you, dear listeners, have no idea what he's talking about, because that'll be a surprise for you. But Jeff and I all know.
Oh, they know exactly.
Just from the couple words, I knew exactly where that was going.
It's torturous and
something
wonderful.
To look forward to.
But it's so
that was
much
our
fun
third
for me.
episode.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was my first Ronisode.
And I thought for sure we're done. But people liked it.
People adored the Wild Cards Ultimate Challenge.
Face the Ultimate Challenge, yeah.
I feel that another Ultimate Challenge... I mean, it's time.
Can it be an Ultimate Challenge if we've already been ultimately challenged?
Well, it's going to be the more Ultimate Challenge.
Ultimater Challenge.
Yeah, the Ultimater Challenge.
The Ultimater Challenge.
Yeah.
All right, so there's something to look forward to, dear listeners. Until next time, stay wild.
Stay wild!
Bite the edge.